welcome, guys. We are so glad that you are here tonight as we are going to be continuing our study, and we're about to wrap this thing up. We're going to do a little panel next week, and I want to show you a video of all the different four aspects of how God speaks to us and how he leads us. But tonight we're really going to finish the main teaching up tonight as we have been looking at the four ways that you and I and the people around us hear God's voice. And we're doing this specifically for the stander, for you who are standing for their marriage. Because I hear all the times, well, how do I know God has called me to stand? I don't know if God has spoken to me because I don't know if God ever speaks to me. I want to lay those things away. I want us to say that is no longer on the table, that we know when God speaks to us because we understand how God speaks to us, that God is communicating to us in so many different ways. And so we've gone over three of them. And even the very first week, we talked about what I call are the five kind of the basic core values of growing and hearing God's voice. And then we talked about three of the ways. And tonight we're going to hit the fourth one. So here are the four ways that we see biblically, that we see in our life as well, of how does God communicate and how potentially could you hear God's voice. We have knowing, we have feeling. Last week we talked about hearing, and tonight we're talking about the fourth and final way, and that is through seeing. That through the eyes of seeing, that you being kind of a seer, you kind of having a picture that people just kind of see, you just kind of know what's going on, that you are the seer, and the graphic for that is the binocular. You have this beautiful God-given ability to kind of see what's on the heart of God, to begin to see the plan of God of your life. And you get it through visions, maybe you get it through dreams, you get it through your imagination, you get just this download from heaven, and you can just see what's happening. You just see it. You're like, I know what's going to go down. I know how it's going to go down. I see the end in sight. And someone would say, well, do you have a word? Well, I don't know if I have a word, but I just see it. Well, you know, do you have this? Did you hear God? Well, I don't know if I heard God, but I see it taking place. And I want to affirm you, all of you seers out there, that is God's voice. God is communicating his truth to you by seeing, that you are a seer. God is saying, my voice is coming to you through the lens of seeing, through the binoculars of what God is doing. This one is one of the ways that I hear God's voice. My two primary ways is I am a knower and I'm a seer. That sometimes I can just kind of know what God is communicating to me, and then a lot of times I see what God's going to do. I see big picture. I see down the road. I can't explain how we're going to get there. I can't explain everything, but I see it in sight. I see the steps that have to take. And so you might be a seer. You might be like me. And so tonight we're going to be talking about this fourth and final way God communicates to you, how his voice is entered into the world and enter into his beloved children. You could be a seer. Look at these couple paragraphs that Havilah Cunnington wrote in her study through the prophetic personalities that all this is coming from. Look what she said. Seers are visionaries, dreamers, filled with faith when they encounter a picture from God. They see destinies. They dream dreams. And they love to strategize with the Lord to make them happen. Because they are delighted by the possibilities of what could be. It's easy for seers to cling to hope, but they may go discouraged when they haven't seen breakthrough. Does that describe you? Are you a person who can kind of see the destiny? You're the ones who can dream the dreams and that you can strategize with the Lord of all, and you're filled with hope because you know of the possibilities of what could be. That, I feel, describes me. When I see you guys, why I'm confident about this one and why I'm confident about you and your marriage, guys, I see restoration for you. I have hope for restoration for you because I see what God has done. And I feel like he's shown me what he wants to do. And throughout the church and throughout all the world and throughout all marriages, I see it, guys. I just see God's plan over your life and over your marriage. And I want to partner with you with that. And that's why I love to encourage you guys, because I see it. Because God has just gifted me and he communicates to me because I'm a seer. I can see the vision. I can see the plan. I've got great confidence of it. Here's what else she wrote. God shows seers visions and pictures for many reasons, but ultimately His desire is to encourage us, build us up in faith as we move toward their destiny in him. He longs for a people who will partner with his dreams and visions, and he promises that his plan will be victorious. I love that last part. I love that last sentence that says he longs for a people who will partner with his dreams and visions. Guys, this whole ministry here, Standing Supernaturally, it is birthed out of us choosing to partner with the dream of God, partner with the dreams and the vision of marriages being restored, marriages coming back that were dead, coming back to life, spouses who have left them all of a sudden gets renewed with love and passion for their spouse. This is what we're doing here. This is why this is so important, that we hear God's voice, we hear God's plan, because then we get hope and we begin to partner with God's dream. We begin to partner with God's visions that he's given us. If I'm describing what you're experiencing, man, you could be a seer. You kind of see down the road. You see the big picture here. And so God has a heart for the seers. And so we see all through the scriptures sometimes that there are people who are seers. I mean, that phrase, the seer, it's a biblical phrase. Look at 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 29. It tells us this. Now the acts of King David, from first to last, are written in the Chronicles of Samuel, look, the seer, and in the Chronicles of Nathan, the prophet, and in the Chronicles of Gad, what? The seer. So we see people who have this gift to seeing. God is showing them stuff. We also see and give you a couple of the verses to encourage you about this gift. Proverbs chapter 29, verse 18, is that if my people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. But when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. Guys, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. Does that describe your stand? Does that last verse, let me put it on the screen again, does that last verse, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves? A lot of times that describes the standard. Why? Because they don't understand, they don't see what God's doing. They don't see a move in their spouse. They don't see a breakthrough. They don't see the plans of God. So what ends up happening, they stumble all over themselves. But it says in the rest of the verse, but when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. Our job here at Standing Supernaturally is to help you see what God is doing. Why? So you will be most blessed. Is that you will know and you will hear the voice of God, either through hearing or knowing or feeling or seeing. You'll take the promise of God and you grab that word and you look at that word, you say, that's happening to my life. Because when we don't see, they stumble all over themselves. And so I want to speak to you. If you feel like you're in a stumbling phase right now, you feel like you're stumbling all over yourself trying to stand, guys, I'm telling you, God wants to give you a vision and give you a picture and give you a renewed hope that he is restoring this thing. And therefore you will be most blessed. That's why I love the seer. That's why I love the seeing gift. That's why I love to be able to partner with those maybe who don't see. That's why we have this phrase around here, is that if you don't have a lot of faith for your marriage, you know what? We welcome you here. We're glad you're with us. And if you don't have a lot of faith, that's okay. You can borrow some of mine because I have it. I see what God wants to do. And so lean on my faith, pull from my faith, pull from other people's faith, and just borrow some of theirs because God will fill you up with it. It will overflow. We are meant to be an overflow. And my prayer is God continues to give us vision to see into families, to see into the plans of God, to see into what God is going to do, and that we choose to see the vision that God has for families. That's what we're doing. And this comes one of the ways that God speaks to us. Acts chapter 16, verse 9 tells us kind of very encouraging words again. And a vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia was standing there, urging him and saying, come over to Macedonia and help us. So he had a vision. A vision appeared to Paul. Some of you guys have these visions that God is showing you. We believe very much in visions. We believe in dreams. God communicated all over through the Old Testament, and he's still doing it today. So some of you are having visions. Some of you are having dreams. We want to fan the flame, and we want to say, yes, that's God. Some of you have no visions, you have no dreams, and we want to fan the flame that God is still talking to you, maybe through a hearer, maybe through a knowing, maybe through the feeling. That's why we're doing this study. We want you to be confirmed and confident that God is telling you, I'm going to restore this thing. Because so often, what we see in the natural is not what God is wanting us to see. He wants us to see in the Spirit. And the seer, if you're a seer, you see that. And it's your job, your responsibility, your great pleasure to let the world know what you see. You get to bring life, because when you speak, the faith of God will begin to rise up. Why? Because it's God's word. You're not just making stuff up. You're not just dreaming and just pretending things are happening. You are seeing God's plan over other standards. And when you speak what you see, there's like a grace that fills the room that just begins to encourage them, because when you share what you see, then they see as well. And that is just what we're doing. And so we're so excited just to see. We're excited to see. And so if you're a seer tonight, we want to talk about you. We want to talk about the ways that God is communicating his truth to you. So we're going to go all over kind of the attributes of a seer. We're going to, just like we've done the last couple of weeks, we're going to talk about the strengths of a seer, the weaknesses of a seer. And we're going to talk about how we relate to a seer and how we grow as a seer. Because God is communicating his voice to many people through the seeing gift. So let's talk about the seer. Let's kind of go over that a little bit. First off, the seer, man, they are the dreamers. They're the ones that are dreaming up the thing. They're the ones that are dreaming and starting the business. They're the ones dreaming up the nonprofit. They're the ones dreaming to go here and dreaming to do that. They are the dreamers in the room. They're the ones who kind of see the big picture, and they got the grand plans, and God has given them great big vision, and they're the dreamers in the room. If you're a seer, you know what I'm talking about. You see things that are so much bigger than you can even imagine. You dreamers, you're the seers. We welcome you. We're so glad that you're here. We welcome your dreams. We welcome that. Second aspect of the seer is usually they see clear pictures of what God is going to do. A seer just kind of has these pictures sometimes in their mind. I know people who see in the natural realm, who look at someone and they actually see things written on them. They see letters written on them, or they see like a movie scene above their head, and it's like a little video, like a TV above their head, and they see something play out. Guys, I know people I trust who are biblically solid and biblically ground who have these encounters. They see in the heavenly realms. They see things with their eyes in the natural, but they see the heavenly experiences. And so seers, they get pictures of what God is going to do. And maybe you say, well, I don't think I've ever seen like that. You maybe have seen with your imagination. That is a seer. You can kind of picture what's going to go down. You kind of see what God's doing. Maybe it is through that lens of your imagination. It is through that lens that God has placed in you. And you're like, I see that. I can close my eyes and I can visualize. It's almost like a play-by-play. You're seeing a highlight screen. That's a seer. You do get pictures. When I was standing, I saw what was going to happen. I saw us going on a cruise together. I just saw it. I saw a picture of us going on cruise. The whole standing supernatural framework that we build up, the whole ministry, it came from a vision that I saw. The reason we have this ministry is I saw something. I was driving through town, and all of a sudden I saw this picture. And I don't see a lot of visions a lot of times, but I saw this. I saw this in my mind. It was clear as day. I just saw this scene come through me. And what I saw were these angels, and they were wearing hard hats, okay? And they were in the middle of this construction zone. So I saw with my eyes angels in the middle of a construction zone, and there was like exposed sheetrock, and there was electricity everywhere, and it seemed like a dangerous place, and something was being built up. And I saw these angels wearing hard hats. And this vision came after I was praying. I said, God, what is happening with my family? What is happening with my wife? Why is she responding this way? Why is she doing this? Why does all this destruction look like it's around me? And I prayed, and then instantly I saw this picture. And I saw these angels with hard hats, and they were in this construction zone. And then I heard the Lord tell me, Jason, your marriage isn't finished. It's just under construction. And he showed me a scene by scene of all the different things that will speed up or slow down the construction of a building. He started showing me how bad weather slows things down. He started showing me how the mindset's showing things down. He showed me right there in that vision what we call are the pillars of standing supernaturally. We stand with the divine perspective. If we don't, guess what? If we're not standing with the divine perspective, the rebuild is going to be a slower process. If we don't stand successfully in the storms of opposition, the rebuild, the construction of our marriages is going to take slower. If we don't stand with a healed heart, if we don't stand using supernatural power tools of heaven, then the construction that the angels are working on, that he's inviting you and me to partner with him, if we don't do those, if we don't have those, the construction is going to take longer. So this whole ministry got birthed out of this vision. As I saw these angels, and he said, Jason, your marriage isn't over. It's simply under construction. And I saw it. And I saw a very clear picture of what is that. And what God is wanting us to see is just the promise. And so what's so crucial here is this moving into kind of our third point, the ability to see, is the ability to see how it should be. The ability to see how it should be. You have the ability, when you're a seer, you get a picture in your mind. You get a picture, you get a vision of like, hey, I know how it's going to be. I know how it should be. I know things aren't working right now, but a seer, you begin to see the framework of what needs to change. You begin to see of how the dots need to begin to line up. That's the great gift of the seer. God is showing you. So if you have the ability to see how things should be, you're probably a seer. You can look into a lot of times those great consultants, people walk in and say, okay, I see this, I see that. Okay, I can see God changing that, or I see God making this beautiful. And you just have a picture of how things should be. You're not afraid of how dirty things are. When I saw that vision, I felt like the Lord said, don't be concerned that there's exposed sheetrock. Yeah, it's a construction site. It's a little messy right now. But no great designer, developer walks on and looks at in the middle of the construction and starts panicking. Oh no, there's electricity over here. Oh no, there's water over here exposed. Oh no. They're not worried about it. Why? Because they have seen the end result. They see how it's going to be. They see how it should be. And if something is off, they have the authority. And since they see how it should be, they can step in and they can simply pray and make a correction. And they do whatever they need to do to make a change. That's a seer. So that's what's so important about that. Fourth aspect of a seer to know maybe, are you a seer? Is that they get visions that encompass their passion. A lot of times you will get a vision that absolutely surrounds and absolutely builds up the passion that is in your heart. That there's a passion that riles up because you see it. If a lot of those are describing you, you are likely a seer. And so what are the strengths? What are the strengths of a seer? The seers have great strengths. Number one, I want you to know this. You have the ability of seeing beyond what most people see. That's an incredible strength, that you absolutely get to see things, but know that sometimes other people don't see what you see. So a seer can see beyond what others can see. That is why we want to partner with seers. You want a seer in your life. You want someone who's encouraging you, who's building you up. You want someone who can see past what you can see. That's a gift of a seer. That's a strength. You can I see what's going down. They're like, oh, what about all this? Yeah, I see that, but I see past that. And a lot of people get kind of stuck at maybe 2-3 steps ahead. But a seer can see beyond that. And they look over that wall and they say, hey, this is what I see. I see this working out. I see this working out. Because you see beyond most people. Like I said, that's probably my number one way of hearing God is a seer. Christine will self-admit she's not a seer. She's a feeler. She feels God, and so she doesn't see beyond. And there's all these times I would say, I feel like God has shown me this, and I see this, and I see this, and I see this. And she's like, I don't see that at all. I don't see how that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to work. Okay. We talked about building. You can see here where we built this studio. We got this big studio that we built. I felt the Lord say, hey, I want you to build a studio because you're about to start building and creating curriculum and projects and videos. And I want you to build this top HD studio that's just going to be for the ministry and it's going to be powerful. And I said, I want to do this and do this. I saw this studio, man. I saw all the different parts of it. And my wife was like, I don't know what you're going to do. She couldn't see it. But I saw it. And it happens so often that she's like, I don't see it. But since she's in a relationship with me, and now that I have a trusted voice with her, she'll say this all the time. You know, I don't see it, but I trust you. Sometimes you see things I don't see. She's learned of how I hear, of that I can see beyond potentially what she sees. And she was able to put that trust in that. That's a great strength. You want those in your life. So if you're a seer, don't be discouraged if other people don't see what you see, okay? Because you do see sometimes beyond what other people see. Another great strength is I want you to know this: God has entrusted big dreams with you. The strength of the seers, you have been entrusted with big dreams. God has given you big dreams because he can trust you with them. He knows that you're not afraid of something big. He knows that you're not afraid of this large calling on your life. He's not afraid of throwing out and showing you kind of an impossible situation. He's not afraid of that. God's not scared of that because he trusts you with that. He knows that you can be entrusted with big dreams. You ever have big dreams? I want you to know God trusts you with those. If you're a seer, he knows you see it. And he's like, I'm going to give them this great vision. I'm going to give them this big plan for the ministry. I'm going to give them this big image thing, this big picture, because I can entrust them. I can entrust this with them. And with that, the third strength comes: faith and longevity. A seer has the faith to see those big dreams, to look beyond what other people see, and be able to walk the long haul. What's so beautiful about a seer is when you see something, faith rises up for it instantly. You're like, oh, I see how this is going to work. And you instantly have faith for it. And you guys know what I'm talking about? You see the image. You see the promise. You see how it's going to unfold. You're like, yeah, I got it. And with that is the longevity to walk it out. You're not afraid of the length of it because you see it. You see the road. You're not afraid of the length of the road. You see it. You can walk it out. And so these are some beautiful, passionate, amazing strengths of a seer. You see beyond what most people see. You're entrusted with big dreams, and you have faith in the longevity to be able to walk and to fulfill and to walk out that incredible, great dream God has given you. So those are the strengths. I know those strengths. I like those strengths. I agree with those strengths. Those are my strengths. But these are also true. And these are the weaknesses. These weaknesses of a seer, they're also my weaknesses. These are absolutely true. If you're a seer, you're probably going to agree with some of these. So here's a weakness of a seer that God wants to improve and grow and help you get to the next level is this. Number one, seers sometimes have a hard time relating to those who don't see what they see. Sometimes you see something, you're like, I see it. And when one of the most heart-wrenching things someone can say is, I don't see that. You're like, no, can't you see what I see? I see it's coming here, and I see this happening, and I see this taking place. And you got someone who says, no, I don't see it. And you just have a hard time connecting. You're like, what do you mean you don't see? How do you not see what I see? And sometimes a weakness is we have a hard time relating to those who don't see what we see. And sometimes you can grow impatient with those who don't see what you see because you have the vision for it. You have the faith for it. You can walk the long journey for it because you see it. And when you're around people who don't, and they don't have the faith for what you see, and they're not willing to walk that long road that you know you can get through, it's really hard to relate. And sometimes people disconnect. You're like, oh, just whatever, man. I'm going for it. Or just what you just don't relate well. God wants to improve that for you. A sign of a mature seer is someone who can relate really well with people who don't necessarily see what they see, that they're not offended, that their faith isn't diminished just because someone else doesn't see it. They realize, you know what, sometimes I see beyond other people, and it doesn't make them bad. It's just I have a unique gift that I can see a few more stages down the road. They just don't see it, and that's okay. But then I learned to relate. I learned to walk with them. I learned to communicate. Okay, here's why I'm seeing this. Here, let's look at the steps here we can get there. But it's important for all of you seers, make sure that you're working on how well you relate to those who don't see what you see. Sometimes we act that toward our spouse, okay? If I can be honest. How many of you, this is probably a lot of people, whether you're a seer or not, this aspect to it, hard time relating to others, because I bet 99% of you, your spouses don't see restoration. They don't see what you see, right? They don't see it. They're like, I'm not marrying you again. No, I'm not coming back home. And you're like, I see restoration. I see them coming back. And you see it. But then you have opposition to that. And then the weakness, if you're not a mature seer, you crumble. Because you don't know how to relate to someone who don't see what you see. But a mature seer that you are growing in, every one of you, you're going to learn to relate. Just because someone doesn't see what I see doesn't mean they're not valuable. It doesn't mean I have to crumble. It doesn't mean I can't have a relationship with that. That they just don't see it, and you're okay with that because I see it. Christine told me, I can't even tell you how many times, we are never getting back together. I'm not coming home with you. I'm not talking to you for you. I'm talking to you for the kids. I'll come over and do this just so I can be with the kids. All right? I mean, she told me every way, nope, not happening. She never once saw. She knew I was standing. She knew I was believing for restoration. She knew I honestly saw us getting back together. She's like, you have lost your mind, Jason. That's not happening. Guys, but I was okay with that. God was working with me on that weakness of a seer. I was able to relate well with my wife, even though she didn't see what I saw. So that's an important aspect of weakness that God wants to continue to grow. Second weakness of a seer is one that God does want to build up. Is that sometimes a seer weakness is we can grow weary or even possibly delusioned. Because sometimes it is a big picture. You are seeing things down the road. You're seeing the long haul. You're seeing where it's going. And sometimes as we're kind of going through that, since we see it, there's times that a seer can grow weary for that. And they can even begin delusioned. Like, man, was this just an illusion I saw in my mind? So just if you're a seer, I just want you to understand, just be careful not to fall into that trap of growing weary for those big dreams. Why? God's given you big dreams. Sometimes those big dreams take a while to manifest. And so we want to make sure that we're aware. Hey, I got to be aware that I've got big dreams here. I got some things, a lot of stuff have to come into order for this to come out. Hey, God's going to put this on a big stage. Okay, that thing's got to get built. And so it's important for a seer not to let that weakness of growing weary or even being delusioned. So we want to make sure that that's not happening. The third and final weakness that I want to talk about here is so true to my life. My wife can preach this part so beautifully because she knows this is a weakness of mine. Here it is. The seers have a hard time valuing the day-to-day. They have a hard time valuing the small day-to-day details. We can see the big dream. Man, I see where we're going in years from now. Man, I see God's going to fill up stadiums. I see this is where we're going to go here, and this is where we're going to do that. And we're going to, man, I just see, do you see we're doing that? And I have these big visions, and my wife is simply like, you know what, Jason? Can you take out the litter box? Can you do that? Okay, yeah, great. You're going to go all those big things, fine. But can you just do this? Man, God's going to use me to write books, and I'm going to write. He's showing me He's going to write books. We're going to write curriculums, and then someone's like, "Okay, that fantastic, but can you return my text message? Can you send me back the email?" It's those simple day-to-day things that a seer sometimes has a hard time valuing because sometimes we see that big picture. We're like, "This is where we're going." And that very next step, we're like, it's not that important because we're going here. And with that very next little bitty thing, just the day in, the day out, the taking out the garbage. For me, it's taking out the litter box. It's doing that. Or we can have these big, huge things. And those little day by day, very next immediate step, practical things that need to get done. Sometimes the seer just undervalues those. It's just not on the forefront of our mind. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Any seers here? That you got the big vision for it, right? But you don't see. You have a hard time just doing the little steps, returning the emails or taking out this or doing that one thing or, the little things, the day-to-day end things, what we would call the boring things. No, I don't want to waste my time doing this boring day-to-day stuff. I see the big picture. This is where we're going. Man, we're talking, we're knocking out Goliath. This is what's happening. And all those are true. But we sometimes have a hard time valuing day-to-day situations. And so, if that's you, I can relate. So how do we grow as a seer? If you're a seer, let me give you some great hope and great encouragement. This one is huge. Number one way to grow as a seer. I want everyone to write this down. What's the number one? Write the vision. If you're a seer, it is crucial that you write the vision down. You're getting big picture dreams. God has given you an insight into the future. He's given you a word for what he's going to do. We must write it down. Trust it. God is trusting you with the promise. So now record it. All of you seers, you are the one that is writing the vision down. You're casting vision for people. You need to be able to look at it and articulate it and see it and have it written down to know, first off, that it's not just in your mind making this stuff up. There's something about writing the dreams that God has given you down on paper, typing it up and putting it on. I remember writing stuff down and I put it in my office and I would write down this vision and I would see it and I would just be reminded, this is where we're going. This is where we're going. This is where we're going. I had to get it off my mind where the enemy would say, oh, you're just making this up. But when I put it down on paper and I put it up on a poster, I would say, that is the vision. That is where we're going. And it would grow faith and it would help us. An incredible passage is Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 2 through 3, about writing down a vision. I want you to all look at this for me. He says this, and the Lord answered me, write the vision. Make it plain on tablets so that he may run who reads it. The guys, I'm telling you, the seer will see a vision for things, and we are to write it down, and we're to make it plain. Why? So for the people who come after us or who begin to read the thing that God has given us, when they read it, all of a sudden, they can run. It's like them reading, then hearing the vision, them hearing the big dream, them seeing the picture. They're like, oh, yeah, I agree. And all of a sudden, they start running it. They are empowered. Why? Because you wrote the vision down. You made it plain on tablets. So important. Let's keep reading. Verse 3. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. Guys, remind yourself, it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Because we got to write down the vision that God's given us. All of you seers, all of you dreamers, when you get a word of the Lord, even if it's something small, write it down. Because in truth's sake, this will come in its appointed time. It's going to happen. I'm going to get there. This is the plan of the Lord. Check out the same verse, but let me read you the Message translation. Check this out. The Message translation there on the bottom. This is how the Message said. And then God answered, write this. Write what you see. Write it out in big block letters so that it can be read on the run. The vision message is a witness pointing to what's coming. It aches for the coming. It can hardly wait. It doesn't lie. If it seems slow in coming, wait. It's on its way. It will come right on time. Guys, isn't that a powerful message? Isn't that what God is telling you for your marriage? Habakkuk chapter 2, 2 and 3, the Message translation words it so perfectly. It'll come. Wait for it. Okay? It's coming. And if you're a seer, you are seeing things. You're seeing down the road. You're seeing what God's going to do in someone's life. Wait for it. Partner with it. God's going to do it. So writing down what you see is a big way to grow as a seer. Number 2, is identify priorities and core values. Make sure that you're identifying the core values, the priorities and core values, because God has given you a picture. He's given you a big image here. He's given you a big vision. So we want to be able to identify what are the priorities right now. Okay, I got to get more day to day on this. Okay, God wants me to do this long term or maybe bigger. So how do I kind of work my way back? How do I do that? How do I identify this is probably the most important thing right now for me to do? This is what God is saying right now for us to do. This is how I'm supposed to stand right now. This is how I'm supposed to pray. I got to identify the priorities. And I got to figure out what are my core values that I make sure I'm staying true to that. Like I said, a weakness is sometimes we miss those day to day. We miss those small steps. So as a seer, one of the ways we grow is just identify kind of what's the most important thing here. Okay, I got to put these in order. I got to look, okay, Lord, how's this working out? How are we going here? And then number 3 of how do we grow as a seer? This is so crucial, guys. So crucial. Number 3, be accountable for your vision and moving forward. Guys, be accountable for your vision. Be accountable. We need to have people who are accountable for what we see, who are accountable for what we say. Because if there's not accountability, I've heard this in some other studies, that in anything you do in life, if there's no accountability, it says usually you're only 20% successful. I'm going to say that again. If you don't have an accountability structure in your life, most of the time you only have a 20% success rate. There's something about having people around you who is holding you accountable for your vision. And most of us think about holding us accountable in kind of a negative sense. Oh, I'm making sure you don't do this wrong. I'm holding you accountable. Make sure you don't screw up. I'm talking about holding you accountable for the vision God's given you. Someone in your life who can champion you, how to grow. It's just understand, look, I'm going to be accountable. God, you've given this, Lord. God, I need to get there. I got to see. I need people around me right now who will hold me accountable to the greatness God's doing, that they don't let me slip, that they don't let me quit, that they don't let me grow weary, that they don't let me get disillusioned. I need people who will hold me accountable, who say, Jason, you got a high standard on your life, and we see that high standard on you. So how can we champion you? How can we lift you up and keep going? Because we want to create an accountability structure around you that says, keep on going, because your vision was right, because what you saw is true. We need to be accountable for the vision and how we continue to move forward. We need that in our life. And also, there is the other side of it. That we need people in our life that if we miss something, that we understand, okay, I missed that. And that there's that accountability. That we don't just say something never comes true. No, there needs to be accountability. We absolutely believe. In our prophetic ministry, we believe in accountability. That if I ever prophesy something to you, specifically, if I give you a date or a time, if I say something will happen by this day, and if it doesn't happen by that date, guys, I need to be accountable. We need to grow in the prophetic. We need to be accountable to the words. We need to say, okay, Lord, I said it was this time. It didn't happen. So, Lord, what did I miss? God, did I mishear that? I still believe I hear your voice. I'm not doubting that. I still believe you speak through me. I'm not doubting that. I know that you communicate. My sheep hear your voice. I got that. But somehow I misunderstood something. So, Lord, would you take me on a journey to see what did I misinterpret? Maybe what did I do? We grow in this because we're always growing glory to glory. We don't let the devil shame us. Don't let the devil make us quit, but we just keep on going. And we have the accountability for the vision God has given you. So let me ask you, who's accountable for your vision? All of you seers, are you seeing great things God's going to do in your family? Who's bringing in your life? Who are going to hold you accountable to believe that? When you start doubting your stand, who's going to be around you that says, hey, no. We see what you saw. We agree with what you saw. We need to be accountable for the greatness and the vision God has placed for you. So how do you relate? Let's say you are in a relationship. You know a seer. Your leader's a seer. Your prayer partners are seer. Your brothers are seer. Your spouse is a seer. How do we relate to a seer? Number one, it's really good to ask specific, practical questions. Ask them questions like, okay. What does success look like for that to come true? What would that look like? Questions like, well, so how can we measure if we did this, if we did make that step, if we did make that choice, if we did walk toward that vision, how do we measure that? How do we know we're going in the right direction? Or what needs to change to actually make that happen? Like, is there something that needs to change in my life, in your life, in the mindset for that to come true? What needs to change? You have someone in your life and you ask them good questions. You don't doubt their vision. You're not trying to poo-poo on the vision. You're not trying to say, oh, no, that's get your head out of the sky. No. We're not trying to quench what God is doing in their life, the vision they're seeing. But we ask good questions, practical, specific questions to help them with the day-to-day, to help them. Oh, okay. So God wants you to travel the nations. Okay. What needs to change for that to happen? Well, do you have a passport? No, I ain't got a passport. Well, that's one thing. How about you go get a passport? How about you get prepared? You know, God's going to allow us to birth. We're going to start an orphanage. Well, one question is, well, how's your finances? How's your debt? How can you get out of debt? Because in order for us to fulfill that vision, we've got to have financial freedom, or we got to have the financial backing to do that. Right now, we have some things that we got to adjust first. That will help a seer. They see the orphanage being built, but you need someone to walk alongside them and says, hey, you know what, maybe, we agree with that. Yes, God's calling you to start an orphanage, but right now, we got to knock off some personal debt. God, we need you need to be free to do that, right? Does that make sense what I'm talking about? We need someone to walk alongside us that can help us and talk about these are the steps that is going to have to happen. These are questions for you to consider so the vision and the dream comes true, okay? Let's just, let's say you're standing for your family. Let's just say pornography was a big issue for you and your family. You're like, I see God restoring my marriage. Fantastic. How does the struggle with pornography look like? How is that victory coming? What needs to change in your life for that vision to come true? There's probably needs to be some adjustment. Does that make sense? Sometimes we just see the end result, and we need someone to walk alongside us and say, look, there are some steps that do have to get adjusted. There are some things that we have to consider, that we got to be able to keep looking back, and are we standing correctly? That is why are we progressing? Are we making the right steps? Are we going from glory to glory to glory to glory? That is why we developed here what we call the Standing Supernaturally Assessment Quiz. If you haven't done that, guys, please do it. It's a 20 question. We'll put that here in the comment section here. We'll put that in the description or in the chat. It's just standingsupernaturally.com/assessment. It is a 20 question assessment to kind of let you know maybe where you're currently at on your stand. How well are you currently doing? You're seeing the great vision. You see it all coming back. Well, here's some questions that let you figure out how you're doing in certain areas. How are you doing with the 4 pillars? How are you doing with the divine mindset? And very specific, practical questions just to help kind of guide you to say, okay, how do you measure that? Okay, how do I measure how well I'm standing? We feel like God's given us a way to do that. Of how do I stand? I'm standing doubtfully, right? I'm standing hesitantly, or I'm standing hopefully, and I'm standing powerfully. I'm standing near perfectly. There is a growth that you and I can have as a stander. I pray all of you have taken that assessment. And as you go through a lot of training and as you build yourself up, go through the assessment again and see how well you're doing. Okay? That's why we built it. That's why we created it. It took a lot of work. Hopefully you enjoy that. Hopefully it's revelatory for you. But a seer, help us with that to relate. We've got to be able to ask some simple questions for that. So, number 1, ask specific practical questions. Number 2 is help them document the vision. Help them out. Maybe sit down and say, hey, write down what you saw. I love what you said. I love what God just showed you. I absolutely agree with that. Man, would you write that down for me? Man, I want to make that into a poster. I'm gonna do something with that. I'm gonna put some calligraphy around that. Or hey, write that vision down. Write down your promise. That dream you had from God, oh, that's beautiful. Hey, write that dream down so you can go back and reread it. So you can relate to a seer by helping them document the vision. Simple way to relate to them. Simple way to help them continue and grow their gift and how to kind of continue that. And third, and man, this might be the most important and probably the most overlooked, and that's this. encourage them. How to relate to a seer? Encourage them. The seer is usually the one who has the big dreams, who has the big visions. Sometimes they are the few who see it, and they need encouragement because they are carrying something sometimes large. They're carrying something bigger than themselves. And they might look like they've got it together, but guys, they are the ones who need encouragement more than anyone else. Let me reword that. Maybe not more than anyone else, but they need encouragement. So how to relate? Encourage the seer. Let them know, man, you heard God correctly. Man, you're doing great. Hey, man, you're taking steps. You're doing it. You're making an impact. Brother, you're getting closer to that vision. I see it. Man, I remember where you were, and I see where you are now. You're getting closer, my friend. You encourage them. Let the seer know that they are on track, that the vision is true, that the vision is walking forward. Encourage them. Sometimes people look at the seer and like, oh, man, they got it together. They got the big dream. They got the big vision. They're leading the ministry. They're the ones kind of leading the staff, or they're the ones doing that. And you just think, oh, they got it together. No, these guys, the seers need encouragement. They're carrying some weight. They want to get there. Help them out. Encourage them. So that's a quick way to relate. Ask specific practical questions. Help them document the vision and encourage them. Some simple ways that you can relate to a seer. So finally, a couple questions. Are you possibly a seer? Have I been describing you? Have I been describing God's plan over your life? You probably already know by now if that's you, but let me give you a couple questions here, 5 questions that you can just ask yourself here as we close. Number 1, would you call yourself a dreamer or a visionary? Number 2, are you a visual learner? 3, is it natural for you to hold on to hope in a variety of circumstances? Have you ever had a dream you knew was inspired by the Lord? And do you struggle with the mundane parts of daily life because you're so excited about the vision God has spoken over you? Are some of these questions, describing you? If so, you're probably a seer. And God has been speaking to you through what you see, through the visions in your mind, through the visions in your heart, through the visions that you see over people, that you see over your life, that you see over your spouse's life. This is God. You are hearing correctly. You're just a seer, and you see big things, and we need you, and we celebrate you. And so in review, as we wrap this study up, here are the 4 ways that God communicates to us. I want you to type in the comment section, which one of the 4 of you, what's your main one? And then what's a secondary that you hype. God's going to speak to you, I think, through all these eventually, or through some time. But I do believe we lean more over the other. So look at these 4. Which one are you? Put in the comment section. Knowing. Are you a knower? You just know God is saying words. Are you a feeler? Just God is touching your feelings? Are you a hearer? You hear God's voice. You hear God's truths. Or are you a seer? And through seeing. These are 4 biblical, powerful ways that God communicates his plan to all of the earth. And this is how God is affirming you in your stand. And now he is saying, you heard my voice. I am going to restore this. I will make all things new. Do you know it? Have you felt that truth? Have you heard that reality? Have you seen that picture? Those are 4 ways that God is communicating to his children. And how he is communicating to you to let you know your marriage is going to be restored. And this is how you also get a word for other people. You can help them. Say, man, I just know God's going to do this. Man, I felt God's going to just absolutely restore your marriage. Man, I just hear God saying he's going to restore your marriage. I see God restoring your marriage. Start using these ways that God speaks to you for other people. And let's build the community of standers all over the world. And let's encourage them. Let's let them know that their marriage will be restored. And let's begin to teach them how to stand supernaturally. This is one way we clearly hear the voice of the Lord. So guys, I bless you. Thank you for being a part of this study. Next time, I'm going to come kind of a quick recap, but I'm going to show a video, a kind of a panel of people who, one of these four people. I'm going to show a video from a panel of these four ways, and you're going to hear some stories. You're going to hear some real-life examples of how they heard God about a certain topic and how they're all different. It's going to be really enlightful. So next week, I'm going to show you a video. I'm going to talk, do a little teaching, but also put a nice big video in there for you to understand this is real-life stuff. This isn't just kind of pie in the sky, mystical stuff. God is communicating to his children, and he's communicating to you. And so we bless you, and we declare you are standing supernaturally, and your marriage, it is restored. We'll see you next time. God bless.